Good day, my name is Jianhui Wu. I'm currently working in academia. I'm also the team leader of this project. Today, I would like to share you with my research finding on Chinese economic coercion. This chapter is supplementary and complementary to other chapters because normally Chinese diplomatic strategy in persuading third countries to switch from Taipei to Beijing. They would use two strategies. One is to offer economic benefits. The other, when in terms of other diplomatic countries which are already allies of China, if these countries they want to enter into closer economic or diplomatic relations with Taiwan, China would impose economic sanctions, which is the other side of statecraft. Chinese use of economic coercion, we can roughly identify three characteristics. First one, when China refers to economic coercion, tend not to explicitly recognize that it is using coercive measures against third countries. Secondly, even when China admits it is imposing trade restriction measures, it would not relate these measures to diplomatic or strategic purpose. It would normally use these restriction measures in the name of public health or public security rationale. The third one is we can notice is the victim for Chinese economic coercions are normally democratic countries. This is contrast to the positive economic statecraft, which is the incentive side. In this chapter, I assess the effectiveness of Chinese economic coercion from four criteria. The first one is whether the target sector, the export of the target sector into China has decreased or increased. The second one is the total export volume of the target sector into global market, whether it increased or not. The third one is the total trade volume of the target country into China, or export volume of China increase with China increase or decrease. Finally, we would also trace whether Chinese economic coercion result in behavior change or policy change of the third country, or whether third country offer non-repetition of the same behavior. In this presentation, I want to share you with three case studies. The first one is a Canada case. China imposed economic sanctions against Canada because the arrestment of Meng Wanzhou, the deputy chairman of Huawei. Since then, China imposed a sanction against Canadian canola. If we look at the trade data, we find that the export of Canadian canola into China, in fact, it decreased. But if we look at the trade volume of canola into global market, we find that, in fact, the trade volume significantly increased. So basically, we can trace that. We can find that because of the demand of Chinese canola oil, China has to import canola oil from third countries, which indirectly import from Canada. Also, if we look at the total trade volume of Canada with China, we also find that Canadian and Chinese trade, the total trade volume in fact increased despite of Chinese economic coercion. If we move on Australia, after the COVID-19, Australia demands a closer look on the origin of COVID-19 coronavirus. In response, China imposed economic coercion measures against Australia barley, wine, and coal. If we look at the statistic or the data of Australia barley, Although the tactic sector, tactic product of barley into China, it decreased. But if we look at the global market, the total export volume of barley into global market, in fact, it increased. The same the same applies to Australia wine. Although the increase of Australian wine in the global market has not increased as significant as barley and coal. If we look at the coal, we find even a more significant increase into global market, whereas Australia coal is export into China. In fact, it decreased almost to zero, but its total export into China, total the global market increased a lot. So if we move to the total trade volume, the total trade volume of Australia and China, in fact, despite Chinese coercion, Chinese economic sanction, the trade between Australia and China, in fact, it increased a lot. If you see the data of 2020, it is the highest. Then recently, because the decision of Lithuania, its decision to accept Taiwan to establish Taiwanese representative office in Munich, China imposed trade restriction against Lithuania on three main products: beef, dairy, and also woods. If we look at the target product, the trade volume into China significantly decreased. Also, the total trade volume into China also decreased. Through these three case studies, the effectiveness of Chinese economic coercion is in fact a bit ambivalent, especially when we go to the case of Australia and Canada, where the target sector, the import into China decreased, but their export into global market in fact increased. And if we look at the total trade volume, in fact, the total trade volume Australia and China, also and Canada and China, in fact, despite the economic coercion, it also increased. So, what can we learn from these trade data? Some policy implication can be drawn. In the very beginning, trade diversification is an important element, an important tool to avoid being the victim of Chinese economic coercions. We all know that trade diversification cannot be done within short time. So before this long process of economic diversification, in case of economic coercion, collective action among like-minded countries is important. Collective action can be done two ways. On the one hand, in case of economic coercion, third countries might import from the target countries or the target sectors to lend help to the target country and target sectors. On the other hand, collective actions by filing a complaint in the WTO would also present some pressure to China. This has already been done in the case of China rare earth case, which China used export control against the globe and also in particular against Japan due to the Senkaku or the Diaoyutai Island dispute. Finally, I would like to underline one point here. Although China would offer economic benefit or economic incentive for third countries to switch diplomatic relations from Taipei to Beijing, whether these economic benefits can be materialized or not, it is a question to examine. At the same time, even this economic benefit can be materialized. Most likely, this country would become a victim for economic coercion if their economic highly depend on China. So this is our main finding about Chinese economic coercion. We hope this finding would be of help to policymakers and also broad international community. I appreciate your attention for this.